This episode has been brought to you by My Extraordinary Productions. Don't go at it alone. Let's work on your next film together. Click the link in the description to learn more. Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of my 4-part series on cinematography for non-cinematographers. Last week we discussed cameras. This week we're discussing lighting. The first rule about lighting is that your subject needs to be viewable. The second rule about lighting is that your lighting has to be justified. You can't just have a cave with a bunch of LEDs in it, especially if the story is that no one's been in this cave for 3 centuries. You would have to justify your lighting by not being that far in the cave, or if you are very far in the cave, someone would need a flashlight or a lantern or something. With that, let's talk about our first source of lighting, which is the cheapest option and often the best looking option, the sun. Sunlight can look really good, but your sunlight may change throughout the day, which is the main disadvantage. One challenge of shooting with sunlight is that your subject is staring directly into the sun and then they end up squinting a lot. Another challenge may be just the opposite, where you're staring directly into the sun and your subject is completely silhouetted by the sunlight. If you were to shoot with the sun coming off the side, you may end up with some shadows that you don't necessarily want. And if you were to shoot underneath a tree, it can look really good because the lighting's a little more diffused or indirect, but you may end up with, once again, patchy shadows. Now, you may actually want those looks for whatever you're doing, but you may not want them as well, in which case, your best bet when shooting outside is to shoot underneath an awning or just have some way of diffusing the light or having it bounce so it's a little more indirect. It tends to be a little more flattering that way. If you're shooting inside and using natural sunlight though, you may not come across this problem at all because in order for the sunlight to enter your home, it has to bounce off of a few surfaces first. Our next lighting, which many of you may already have in your home, is overhead lighting. Overhead lighting is already built into a lot of homes, and it can also supplement natural sunlight. But if you only have overhead lighting, you may end up with a lot of really unflattering shadows, and you may end up with a very unnatural yellow or orange tint. Your home may also already contain floor lamps and desk lamps and various other lamps. The awesome thing about using lamps is that they are movable and they can be somewhat adjustable, and you can use this to make the lighting a little more flattering, and often a lot of lamps have some sort of shade which helps diffuse the light again. Lamps are also a great way of starting a fire, at least if you're doing something stupid like balancing that lamp on a chair or something to get it to the right height. Not that I would have any experience with that at all. For the record, I never started a fire. But I always felt like I was about to, so I do not recommend that. After explaining all this, you may have decided that it makes sense to invest in a lighting kit of some sort. Something with a tripod that you can adjust and have it go up and down, and something that has its own diffuser of some sort or doesn't emit really direct light in the first place. And bonus points if it can change color tone so it can be warmer or cooler, or if it can change intensities so you're not always moving it back and forth. In which case, should you go with a ring light? Well, let me answer that question with a question. Are you an Instagram influencer? And yeah, that sounds really sarcastic and mean. It's really not supposed to. It's just that the ring that your eye gets from the ring light has become synonymous with influencers. And you may decide that's not the look you're going for all the time. You would prefer something that's just much more versatile. In which case, there are umbrella lights, there are soft boxes, and they make these LED squares that you can just hang somewhere that get the job done. Now, if this is not the time to buy a lighting kit and you are going to use one of the other methods that I mentioned, you have lots of ways you can still diffuse light and get something a little more attractive. One thing that I already mentioned was having shades and blinds for your windows. Another thing would be taping paper or some sort of diffusion material to your lamps, to your overhead lighting, which, once again, you may start a fire, so be careful with that. But it is an option, and if you're super careful, it's really not that bad. It may start a fire, but it won't be that bad. You can also buy things that were meant to diffuse light, or you can bounce the light off of white objects which makes it reflect back and it's a little more dispersed than direct. What I've done in the past is I've had a light bulb shine on a white wall and then it would bounce back and be a little more even. I've had sunlight here and someone had a white poster board of some sort here, so that kind of evened things out. There are other options. I've been talking a lot about dispersing the light because I tend to prefer flat lighting. Flat lighting is more even, it's great commercially, it's great for a lot of comedies, it's great for lighthearted things, but flat lighting doesn't always look good if you don't have enough space for it. You need a little bit of depth in the background in order for things to look good. Depending on what you're doing, you may prefer something with more chiaroscuro. Chiaroscuro just refers to the contrast of light and dark, and chiaroscuro is great for dramatic things. It's great when you don't have a whole lot of space and need to provide a few more details. And chiaroscuro can be very artistic. Now that we've talked all about the equipment, let's talk about the setup. A very basic lighting setup could be having one direct key light in front of your subject, having a diffused secondary light off to the side, and depending on the amount of space you have, you may even include some sort of backlight so that your subject is separated a little from the background. Alright, thank you so much for watching this video. Next week we are going to talk about sound, and I hope to see you then. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Please be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons, follow me on social media, and if you have a question, leave a comment below. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.